So I see. It looks like there might be a little bit of issue with the sound. So let's see if we can fix that. Yeah. Can everyone hear us right now? Yeah. Okay. Okay, it looks like sound's coming out. Let's make sure we all mute our own live streams on our own side just to make sure there's no echo. Hi, thank you.
Hello again, now they can hear us.
Hello
Everybody.
again.
Hello. hello.
That was a little embarrassing.
That was just a test,
Just a test, absolutely. But yes, hi everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in from all over the world. I mean, and from just so many different time zones. It's 1 a.m. for me over here. Some of us are drinking our morning coffee. Well, I guess I can introduce ourselves again. So just to get started, hi everyone again, and welcome to the very first panel discussion, the very first event of this inaugural Dora Expo, Web Design in the AI Era. So hello again, I'm Isa, your host for Dora Expo, and I'm just so excited to be able to kick off Dora Expo with this panel of super talented. We've got designers, we've got developers, leaders, entrepreneurs, so many different, a diverse cast of roles right here to delve into the profound impact of AI-powered creativity on designers and design teams. So just allow me to provide a brief introduction about myself. I serve as the head of community at Dora, which, as you may or may not know, is the no-code 3D website builder that recently brought you Dora AI, a text-to-website AI tool that sort of combines the capabilities of generative AI with intuitive no-code tools. And I kind of bring this up because this is especially relevant considering you can think about it as a part of a larger movement and trend that we're witnessing right now to empower creatives to surpass technical and learning barriers with AI. But of course, we're also aware that there may be some mixed attitudes and feelings surrounding this pretty rapid development and increased accessibility of AI tools. And that's why we're gathered here today, actually. How can we prepare for some of these changes inevitably brought by AI? And with this team, we're not just going to talk about how tools for creativity will change, but also how we as designers may evolve and adapt to these changes. So without further ado, let's welcome our lovely panelists and get to know them a bit better. And so while we introduce, I would also love to hear all of your initial sort of stances or positionalities. So earlier we kind of touched on how some designers may consider themselves perhaps early adopters, embracing AI tools for creativity, while some may take a more conservative approach or perhaps preferring to wait and see. So my question to you is, after you introduce yourselves a little bit, where do you lie? So what's your stance? So why don't we start this introduction with Linus? So for many in the tech AI space, you're definitely a familiar face, but for those just joining or new to the community, would you like to quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah, so hi, my name is Linus. I'm a designer by trade. I happened to stumble into the AI La La Land last year out of curiosity, and also being an early adopter. I think I come from like a background of working in SaaS businesses, so I've been at Typeform, Flowdesk, and a few other larger SaaS companies where AI was never a thing. And when I left my position and I started to kind of like delve into what I want to do next, I had played around with GPT-3, and that opened my entire world. So I think I had my aha moment quite early, and that kind of ties into my stance on this. And I'm very open-minded about this. This is tools and technology like anything else. This is not going to come in and swoop in and take anything away from me. But what it will do, it will supercharge my capabilities to be competitive. And I've been sharing as I've been learning. I've been sharing my journey, and I think that's been the thing that resonated a lot with people, because people are inherently afraid. But again, like trying to expose my playful mindset towards these tools have probably helped a lot of people to have the same kind of stance. So that's a little bit about me, designer by trade, AI aficionado, or playman, sharing everything that I learn. And I hate to gatekeep, so hopefully my kind of sharing will make others share as well. So that's a short little intro.
Thanks, and welcome to AI La La Land. Next, we have our very own multidisciplinary designer and award-winning art director, currently located in Barcelona, if I'm not mistaken. But Mauricio, would you like to introduce yourself next?
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm near Barcelona in the mountains, but that accurate. Mauricio Tonon. I am a award jury, a designer, and artist. I really like to experiment with everything that is creative, from music to cooking to design and art. And last year, I started using Midjourney right in the beginning of their alpha, when it's only invitations happening. And for me, like, I fell in love immediately because I was facing a hard moment in my life when I was deep into 3D, but I get some really hard tendinitis in my both arms, so I was not able to like produce any type of work at the time. And then with AI, I could just type my ideas and things start to come out. So for me, it was like almost a salvation for my situation, you know. And at that time, I think I follow a little bit of what Linus' approach of, like, I shared all my prompts from moment zero. So everything I did, I was sharing how I done it, and people really like it, really create engagement around it. So it's quite nice. The power of the community the AI is building, for me, is one of the most interesting things, like how much people are helping each other, like are united and like really creating something interesting. So for me, it's a tool, it's a new technology that is here for like allow us to focus on like more creative side of things, while the those tasks could be done by AI.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And next up, we have, well, how should I start? He's been a judge at awards. He's been a judge at Webby Awards. He's been a judge at Lovey Awards. And he's spearheading digital design teams at Ebb. Marten, would you like to introduce yourself next?
Yeah, that must be me indeed. So thanks. I'm Marten. I'm a designer and art director at Depth Agency. It's a full service agency all across the world. And I'm based in Amsterdam, also living in Amsterdam. And I got in touch with AI also last year, just like the others. And my first tool was Midjourney. And it's still a tool I'm using every day. And it started as a hobby. I thought, wow, this is really nice. You can visualize your imagination within minutes, within seconds. Always was a dream for me as a child, of course, and now everything is possible. The sky is the limit, not even. So it started as a hobby, tried to play around with it, did a lot of it. I shared it on the social media just to get response of it, also to get in touch with people who were also in the AI world, but also talk about like what is the ethical aspect of AI and what are the downsides and the upsides. So I really like that. And now I'm also using it in my work at Depth, and which I really like. It's in a totally different way how I use it now when I use it as a hobby, just to play around with it. But I think in both ways it's really useful. So yeah, you can call me an AI addict nowadays. I think that's it from my side. Yeah.
Thanks, and would love to hear more about how, you know, that difference, I guess, between using AI for the hobby versus now applying it to your work. Definitely get into that later. next up, we have, I'm not sure whether I could classify as a double, triple, or maybe just quintuple threat. I mean, you work at everything from 3D, AI, Web3, blockchain, and you DJ. Eugene, would you like to introduce yourself next?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the introduction. I'm Eugene, director of technology at Bambrai. It's a Balinese company that specializes in digital products. I've kind of worked all over the industry, mostly as a developer. So I'm kind of coming at this from a very technical angle, I guess you could say. But I kind of switched to 3D design as a hobby and kind of more as a profession over the past year or two. So I've been kind of really diving into the design aspect of it as well. But yeah, for me, AI kind of started when I was working for a company called Soul Machines, and they were looking at building digital avatars, which were kind of this creation of people in digital space that kind of had this full autonomy. And just working with AI and audio and trying to, transcribe people's audio and basically building out personalized voices, like a lot of what you see with like 11 Labs now. And they've just, we were trying to do that back in the day. But yeah, I find AI is, I love using it in design. I think it's very, it's a way for us to kind of curate more than, gotta get into the nitty gritty of, moving, parameters around and kind of taking a higher level approach to design, which I'm really looking forward to. But that's a bit about me, and we're really excited to be here.
We're excited to have you here too, and definitely very interesting intersection you're at right now. Would love to see how that plans out in the discussion. But finally, we have the head of the Adoratorio, please let me know if I'm pronouncing that wrong, studio, based in Italy, award-winning studio, and just a wonderful and proactive participant at Dora Expo. He's actually going to be speaking at more than one event during this expo. Filippo, would you like to introduce yourself? Oh no, the audio, hold on. Let's see, do you want to check your output?
Test.
Awesome, we can hear you.
Right? Yeah, nice. Hi, everybody. I'm Filippo. I'm head of the studio at Dora. You said it correctly. And we are a digital creative agency based somewhere in Italy. What we do is we work with a lot of different industries and brands in creative, engaging, and memorable digital brand experiences, ranging from websites to installations, so on and so forth. Like most from what I heard on the panel here, I got in touch with AI last year. And I must say, like Marten, I was initially very, very interested more in the social ethical aspect of the tools, on how they're growing and so on. And also, I mean, we are, all of us here, but most of the people, I suppose, that we engage with tend to be proactive towards AI, I believe, simply because we work in a very innovation-oriented kind of environment, right? And therefore, we're going to have a lot of this kind of influences on us. So yeah, that's why I got in touch with AI. I don't share as much. Okay, I generally just on my side and mostly follow others in C to see what they're doing and try to fit it into the works that we do. We actually did on a few projects recently, but yeah, that's who I am and how I got in touch with AI pretty much.
Awesome, thanks for sharing that. And it is interesting to see sort of, I guess, that kind of diversity in our stances, at least, of how we're approaching sort of new developments in the AI space. So actually, that might actually bring us to the next question I kind of have for y'all. So after sort of going over our own viewpoints in terms of, or our own positionality in terms of how we're embracing sort of new AI tools and methodologies for our creative process. How do you think they compare to sort of the viewpoints of designers around you? Previously, we kind of touched on how there might be some sentiment of fear, right? So what concerns or perhaps even fears, questions, or maybe hopes do the people around you have about AI tools for creativity?
I'll start. Maybe someone will join me on the run. I'll just take the more social aspect. I believe that the concerns about AI are generally related to the fact that, first of all, it's something very new, okay, and everything that's new scares, right? And I believe also that it's very it takes a very particular kind of designer, okay, to approach it. I'll be a little bit anecdotal. In Italian, we have two words to define a designer, okay? We have designer and graphic, which means graphic, let's say, okay? And how I describe the two is one as the willingness to actually explore, to have a creative idea, to pull off something that he imagines, right? And the other instead simply design stuff, right? And I believe that's very much what AI brings. The willingness to actually learn a completely new tool and a completely new approach to creating, okay, will most definitely scare whoever has difficulties, say, in approaching completely new takes on what has been pretty much their craft for the longest time or for the shortest time, right? So I believe that's the first concern I hear from people, even before all the more ethical stuff like very basic control of data sets in AI, which is not basic but well, and so on and so forth. I don't know how you guys feel about this.
Yeah, I can just attune to that. Like, I see two types of stances. So either you are very open-minded or you're basically shutting off. And I'd say like the shutting off thing can come from multiple places and multiple observations, basically. Either you're afraid or you're too defensible of your craft. Let's say you've been a designer for X amount of years, you spent tens of thousands of hours learning, and then basically you open a chatbot, you type a few words, and out comes something that's on par of what you can create that takes you weeks. I understand the fear that. I understand why people are, I don't want to touch this, or like it's unethical. I understand that. But this is out of the bottle. And I think the thing to focus on now is not being afraid of these things, but rather to kind of like, okay, this is happening. How do I fit in this new realm? What can I do to supercharge my own capabilities with the help of these tools? So anytime I sense the skepticism about this, I'm trying to bring out examples where people have actually done something and used it for something very useful in their own workflows, or just to like elevate themselves, because like we do a lot of tedious work every day. There's a designer shortage globally. Like there could be 1 million more designers, and we would need 1 million more. So I'd say that like from that vantage point of like seeing people that are embracing it and people that are against it, I see a split in the middle. Basically, if you look at my feed, there's going to be 50% that are against it and 50% that are for it. And I get really hyped up about that, because it means that I have a lot of work to do. And I'm not saying that to be like, oh, I'm all hyping AI and we shouldn't be careful. We should be very careful. We should have the discussions around where does the training data come from and how does all this work. But the fact that we're talking about this is already making these models and the creators behind the models think differently. We might not need big data sets a year from now or 2 years from now. So then that discussion would be obsolete. So I think we should focus more on what matters, and that is to transition a lot of people into the tools so they understand them, and focus less on the things that doesn't matter. It's like, oh, it uses this image in the training data. Who owns the rights to it? Well, my opinion is those things are going to go away really quickly, because no one is going to, not the makers of these tools are not going to be wanting to be at the kind of spearheading of people getting sued. Like no one wants that. And so I can just see like a lot of the things will just sort themselves out. I think Filippo said it, like we're so early that the development is so fast as well that we don't really know. So instead of kind of debating things in a circle that leads to nowhere, we should kind of like, okay, we're here now. How can we make sure people are not getting left behind? How can we make sure when we onboard people that we do it in an ethical way? And we use our moral compass to kind of make the judge. And again, this is really tricky because everyone's moral compass is different, but we need to do things, right? We have an obligation to kind of steer this in the right way, like create less fake content, create less bad things, and kind of showcase what AI is good for. Sorry, that's a bit of a rant, but like, yeah, that's my take on it. Like 50-50, we need to help people, basically.
I'm just going to make sure, does anyone want to comment before I add on to that?
No, I think I totally, yeah, sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. I think I totally agree. I have also the same kind of response on my post. Like lots of people hate it, and they DM me and send me hate DMs. How much they hate me, and I'm ruining the design industry, etc., etc. So, but it's also, I don't know. It's maybe it's also that because some people in some industries really have see AI as an opponent, as something which could replace them, and like I think we all are in an industry where we can use it as a tool, where it could help us, where it could save us time, save us money. But there are, of course, people, maybe, I don't know, a copywriter for a bakery who now thinks like, okay, yeah, the bakery could just use ChatGPT now and I'm not needed anymore. So maybe for the smaller jobs, if I say it correctly, it could be replaceable. But I think still, like what Eugene says, like Linus says, I mean, is that we should think about a way how we can use it in our workflow, how we could make it ourselves better, I think. So, and that's also what I'm doing at Dept. We are using it in a smart way, so we can save time there. We can use our time better for the more unique stuff, for the stuff we really need high quality for. So it's really part of the process now, where it could save us time. I think everyone should look at more in a positive way, instead of like as a threat or whatever. So that's what my addition is to Linus.
Yeah, maybe I could just add a little bit to that. It's like what, again, you said like the smaller jobs. I think what it is like the fringes. If people have been in an industry for a long time, they're going to be like a 20 years experience, 15 years experience. They're going to be slightly afraid. Or if they're starting out, they're going to be like, there's no job for me here. Like AI is taking everything away from me. And those two fringes are, I think, the ones that I'm seeing being the ones that are anti the most. And then everyone that sits in the middle, that has like a bit of experience, or they have a playful mindset, or they're just willing to adapt to new things as they show up. Those are the ones that are coping the best. But I understand, like, imagine if you go to law school today, just to look at like beyond Midjourney, beyond Stable Diffusion, and start looking at like agents and like large language models. If I started law school today, I would be freaking out in real terms, right? Where would I be after like adding a few $100,000 to my student debt, and then coming out into a world where I have no idea whether or not an AI is going to be able to compete better with me at law than I will after like studying for 5 years. So I think we need to be very vigilant about that like it goes beyond generative art. Like this AI movement is like basically it's touching everything that we know, and not just our design industry at large. So yeah, so I just wanted to add that.
Mauricio, I see you.
Yeah, I agree a lot with everything you guys are saying, and I think it's complicated and it's funny because a lot of changes, like big changes, are happening in like the market itself. Like the efficiency and delivery starts to getting less valued, and like creativity and ideas, it starts to getting like more evaluated and more valuable. And we are basically trained for the other. So we have to change your mind, change your paradigm, change everything to this new thing. So for everybody, it's a little bit messy, it's a little bit complicated. But for me, the main difference is like, and why I'm never been afraid of AI is because you can actually teach taste to a machine. That is something like human. That is something that comes from your gut, from something that just we have, like, and that's something that you cannot teach. You can train a machine to simulate it, but you will do the simulation of this training, but the taste, the camaraderie of it is like something that we'll never miss. The small problems that happen in a project that the AI is not trained to do, we are the people that like have the intuition and have like the creative mind to like give it around and like find the right solution for it. So I don't think all the jobs will be replaced, but like the most just production ones that doesn't involve like thinking would definitely be at risk. But let's see, like it's up to us to like transform society to good and like support all these people and give them new roles that they actually are interested in doing instead of just production, like what people are really passionate about. If we can find like this middle term, I think everything could be fine. Yeah.
Awesome. Eugene, I know you earlier wanted to comment. Did you want to add on to that?
Yeah, I'll just add, like, I think, yeah, it's exciting to be able to kind of like look towards these higher levels of thinking, right? Instead of, thinking about AI to allow us to do this kind of stuff, like, kind of getting rid of some of the more menial tasks of our processes, right? I think that allows us to open up other aspects of thinking about how we can tackle problems, and use the more human side of our, of our brain, right? Yeah, and just with the transparency thing, I think Linus was kind of touching on, like, I think it's good that we kind of look at, we put a lot of transparency on these systems, right? Like, and kind of illuminate it, even if it's not the best practice at the moment. Like, even if there are companies not creating the best practices, it's important that the community is highlighting those. And I think that shows where the faults are, I think, in the system, right? So, like, for example, like artists, and artists crediting their work, I think being able to, somehow find compensation for artists potentially, if they are used in these sort of models, like, I think just even exposing that and having a conversation around that allows that to happen more quickly, right? Rather than, a lot of tech in the past has been so mysterious to people that people don't know how it works, and by the time it happens, it's too late, So I think, yeah, transparency is quite a good thing with AI, and I think there's a lot of companies that are pushing on that.
Yeah. Go ahead, Linus.
So, I mean, it's an interesting one. If you think about it, machines, they're basically doing what we're doing. So they're looking at a lot of things and they're learning. They're seeing patterns and they're learning. So, but just because a machine is doing it, then we're kind of like, well, if a machine was influenced by artist X, then artist X should get some kind of revenue from that, or they should get some kind of pay, like similar to like how artists get royalties. It's interesting because, like, if we humans are inspired by something, and no one can tell me here, hand to heart, that they've never been inspired by someone else, then they would be lying. So, like, we're always inspired by something, and we remix and we create something else. Should the same kind of principle apply to humans being inspired by others? Like, say if I see Filippo's work and I'm like, oh, that's really nice, I'm gonna take a curve there and I'm gonna take something from that and I'm gonna incorporate that into my work. Should he get paid for me being inspired by that? It's just a question for the group, because I think this is a very interesting discussion to be had.
I think it's kind of similar to the music industry, right? Like, where, you have a certain amount of song, a section that is like inspired versus like, but I think
AI pretty much enters the stage in a bigger movement by itself, even though it's probably one of the biggest proponents of the movement. It works with other technologies that are shaping up as fast as AI is, blockchain and everything that's Web3 related, if we want to use that word, right? And so I believe that whatever the end point of these in terms of royalties, of credits, and so on and so forth, we also have the collateral technologies that can actually make that happen, right? NFTs and blockchain and so on and so forth. So it's going to be very, very fun to look at, but I think it's going to be more of a thought exercise, okay, and a social exercise rather than anything, because as Linus was exactly saying, we have seen these kind of movements in shadier, let's say, environments and moments, okay, and how they turned out and how technologies were copied or simply inspired by, and so on and so forth. Right now, we at least have the possibility to see these things happening, and I think society will shape this out, but it's not going to stop it, right? So that's why I don't. I'm not afraid of that, and yeah, I question myself about it. But I mean, there are other points that I question myself more. Like again, data sets and so on are really interesting to me in the long term compared to this, which I'm certain will solve itself as we go along.
Maybe it ties into what you said, Mauricio, about like we're moving away from like valuing the output to valuing the ideation. So like if the devaluation of output happens and the increase of valuation on ideas happens, that's also interesting because like it means there will actually be less royalties to be paid out to whoever is the author or inspired by author. Thank you everyone for your opinion. Sorry for hijacking the questions there. Lisa, I give it back to you.
Oh, no, absolutely. I still think we're 100% on track because, I mean, all in all, we're on the same page about sort of the inevitability of like the adoption of AI in multiple sectors. But sort of the question is, because we've touched on a lot of these ethical gray areas about using AI for certain workflows. But I guess that begs the bigger question of, how the capabilities of AI are actually going to change how artists and designers or just creatives in general approach their workflow. Because now you're talking about like what is going to be valued, right? What is changing in terms of what is valuable for a designer? What is a valuable skill for them to have? And are we going to change the way we approach design problems? Because we're also talking about sort of matching that AI being able to match our high level intention. Right. So I was just wondering because I know also, I believe, Marten, you kind of were talking about how you believe AI actually can democratize art and design, and that can change, for example, who can start approaching design problems or design work. So I guess to return to the question, how have the capabilities of AI really sort of changed how we approach our work or design problems?
Yes, I think there are two ways to do it. One way is to use AI as like the end product, the final solution. And the other way is to use it as part of your process. If I look at Dept, we just recently launched Dept/AI, which basically means our own department within Dept, where we only do AI related stuff, where we have people who are really skilled in AI and working for clients where AI is the best solution. This is a nice way because like when a brand or a company doesn't have the budget to do something really exciting, now it could be possible because of AI. Of course, they still need us as creatives or developers or whatever, but we could save lots of time and money by using AI for it. So it's an open door for lots of brands and companies to do something more unique for their brand, for their communication. So that's, I think, a nice way to do it. But if I look at from my personal perspective, I use it in a way more functional way. For example, I'm now working on a project where we use where we create a website and where we need photography for. So we're going to shoot photography, but we will do that later this year. So till that moment, we have to work with placeholder content. And placeholder content is for every designer always a thing because you have to spend time on it, to look on Google for lots of imagery, or going to stock photo sites, which no one likes, or you have to go to competitors, which is the client doesn't like most of the time. So, or you have to sketch it or Photoshop it yourself really quick. But it always takes time. It always takes time to get content before you get to real content. And AI gives now the opportunity to designers to work with realistic content as placeholder within your designs. And it goes both ways, because it's easier for designers and also for clients to understand like how will it look like in the end, but also could help photographers with like, how do we have it in mind? Which angles, which kind of lighting, which environment. So that's a nice way to help them as well, to cater a little bit of a mood board for those kind of people, to help them in the beginning. And not only for photographers, also for 3D designers or for illustrators. For all those creatives, it could help to make a little sketch in your AI tooling to help them on their way. And if I look at the past, we always had to spend lots of time on photoshopping, sketching ourselves, etc. And then the interpretation was wrong, and we didn't get exactly what we wanted. And I think this is the perfect way to brief people, to use it for mood and style boards, to use it as placeholder content, not only for imagery, also for copy. And also, and then to close it off with, it really could help us in a functional way as well. For example, with copy, if I look at the copywriters at Depth, they use ChatGPT to make the simple things to help them on their way. And so they can spend their time on the more important things. Or they get inspired by AI. So like, okay, give me 10 options for this title, and I will pick the best one, or I will adjust the best one a bit. So it could save us time, it could save us money. And I think in my world, in the agency where I'm working at, that's an important aspect of using AI. So yeah, that's it.
Really interesting, sort of like suggesting that incremental approach to using AI. Sorry, Filippo, did you have your hand up? Also, I noticed, Mauricio, you had your hand up for like a split second. So if you wanted to...
Can hear you, Filippo.
Oh, no.
No audio.
Yeah.
Nope.
Can't hear.
Maybe before he tries to fix his audio. So I think what you're saying there, Martin, is interesting, because co-creation with AI, I think, is where I've seen the most success, where like it's a little bit what you described, but even more kind of like a sparring partner, where you go back and forth with AI and maybe not so much at Midjourney, but way more with ChatGPT and content creation and strategizing, where most people I think are using it wrong. They're just like, give me X, I want this now, I want to use this output, and I'll be done with it. Whereas like the real magic happens when you are simulating or ideating or kind of going back and forth, working on ideas together with AI. And I think also getting different vantage points, like getting the AI to speak back at you as a protagonist, or like poking holes in your ideas. Say, like, you've written something, you've done something, but then you ask it to be very critical about what you've made. That's where the true power of AI comes in my opinion. And it's also where I see kind of like the most leverage, where people are creating extremely interesting outputs from just adding a little bit of like dialogue and a little bit of like tension between the human operator and the AI counterpart. And I hope to see more of this in other tools as well. I hope to see more of this in Midjourney and Stable Diffusion, where like the artist can be more kind of like, you know, pushing back a bit and like, this is what I want, this is going this direction. And I think we're starting to see that with like tooling built around Stable Diffusion, like ControlNet and other things, where you're just getting more control, basically. So I just wanted to add that. And maybe now, Filippo, your audio is working, so I'll give it back to you.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. Okay, yeah, should be working, right? Fantastic day. No, I'm very much in line with what Martin was saying, because I think right now, okay, AI is exactly the ultimate visualization tool, right? And that's exactly in the terms like Stanley Kubrick used to shoot his films by having a miniature sized of the whole stage, right? And with the actors and everything to actually find the correct angle for his camera and so on. And in what Martin was bringing over for photographers, say that's exactly what you can do in an earlier stage. We also used AI in a very simple way, again, in one of our recent projects, a very huge WebGL project, whatever, where pretty much we wanted to visualize these fantastic villa, okay, in the countryside, and our illustrator was out of the office. And so what we did is simply we went to Midjourney. We actually went through a few AI tools to polish it up and actually use it to visualize it for the client in the end. And I believe that in that, as well as for copywriters and so on, right now, it's the most fantastic tool to save time on one side. And also, again, it's also centering so many things that were scattered before. I do copywriting quite a bit as well, like Marten was saying, and running around, being Italian as well, and not an English native speaker, running around from sometimes word reference and then thesaurus and all those tools that you use. ChatGPT makes it so easier, right? So much more immediate to actually find solutions and then go and polish things up. Again, what this does is simply cut off time where the time was only used to produce, okay, and not to actually create, which I think are two very different things. One has thought in it, and the other is simply a mechanical act, right? So, yeah, very much agree with Marten, and everybody seems like right now.
Nice.
Yeah,
nice.
I would just like to add like how powerful the AI tools has been. Like for me, like I literally take them as my assistants. ChatGPT for everything test related, Dora AI for websites, Midjourney and everything. And I'm really exploring how to like bring my own work, my 3D work inside Midjourney. So I'm using the describe function to like try to understand how the machine perceives my work, how it describes. And from that on, I take like a lot of elements and start to building my own style inside of Midjourney using my own work from the past. So it's like Linus was saying, like it's a whole process, not just like type something and get a result, but like I generate one thing, then I use the same image as base, and we build a lot of like giant flows actually to really get like some final results that is outstanding and stunning, and that's a creative process. But we don't touch buttons anymore. We don't touch the interface. That's the difference. It's a different way to interact, but the process is there. The process is happening the same way. So it's really interesting for me.
That is very interesting. And actually, I think this begs another question of, well, now that we've touched on sort of how AI tools are being used in the creative process, how can we actually, and we're mentioning sort of like this more collaborative aspect or interaction between AI tools and designers, how might we actually then build tools for designers if that seems to be where we're getting the most value out of our tools? So where and when would AI provide the most, I guess, utility?
In my opinion, oh, sorry.
Eugene, go ahead.
I mean, just coming from like a developer perspective, like you really want to make it like as intuitive as possible for anyone coming along, right? Like, and I say like the Spline AI tool that's been released recently, they've done a fantastic job of this. Like it's so easy to use. It's so intuitive. Like you're taking a very complex platform, like a 3D platform, and then trying to simplify it through language, you know? And I think being able to like, distill it down to just language commands is incredibly powerful. Just very intuitive. You just want people to, I mean, it comes back to good design though, I think too, right? Like you still need a designer to know how people are going to be interacting with your tools. So yeah, just as intuitively as possible, I would say.
Interesting. So we're touching on that learning curve there. Using natural language to address the learning curve that might exist for a 3D design tool.
Yeah,
100%.
I just wanted to add to that. I think the Midjourney's biggest bumper now is like the fact that you have to learn Discord. Like Midjourney would have had like probably 50 million more users if it wasn't for the fact that you have to like go through the hurdles of learning how to use Discord. That just pokes at how important UX is at this point. And I also think like for designers, I would love to see more personalized AI, like what you're describing, Mauricio, where you're taking your own work and you're kind of like doing like a few shot kind of way to create more stuff that's in your style. I'm seeing a lot of people trying to do their own LoRa's for Stable Diffusion, where they're training corpus on their kind of existing material. So let's say I'm a photographer or a designer and I have tens of thousands or thousands of images that I've made in my career. I'm training like a subset of LoRa's on top of Stable Diffusion to then be able to like query Stable Diffusion directly for my work, or at least like simulated work in my style. I think if we look at like the graphical outputter and the people that are designing things that are actually visuals, this would be super powerful for them to have that in a package that's super easy to do. Like upload a zip file here, wait 5 minutes, and then start using your own AI. Like that would be the ultimate thing. You just drag and drop something in and then you start working with it. Currently, it's way too complicated. You have to like run your own GPU instance in the cloud. You have to do your own training. You have to do your own weights and biases. Just like a tremendous amount of work. But like if this is happening right now, and we're seeing people doing this, you can imagine like 12 months from now, every one of us will have our own AI that's trained on our own design work, and that will output things just by us typing or talking. The same thing, like typing or talking will equally, doesn't matter. So that's, I think what we need to see, we need to try to skate where the puck is going, not looking at where the puck is right now, like like a hockey analogy here, but like really try to focus and see like where is things going. Try to go in that direction now, because the pace of AI is just moving so fast that if you get stuck looking at currently what's available today, you're going to miss what's going to happen tomorrow. So I think like even if we are early on, I think it's our job to keep like kind of pushing the boundaries and keep being in the forefront of what's going on.
That is, I mean, that actually kind of, was actually curious about sort of staying at the forefront and staying updated, because I think the natural question, like, because now we were just talking about how we can build design tools, right? But the other side of that is really like how, I guess, individual designers or even just design teams can better prepare themselves, right? How can we learn more, stay ahead, quote unquote, stay ahead of the curve? Or just learn how to equip ourselves with the right skills and knowledge to be able to succeed, considering these changing times. And I was wondering if any of you had insights on this.
I wanted to just add on this topic. They tie in perfectly, I believe, with the question I wanted to bring up for everybody, because I strongly believe that being toying around with AI right now and haven't toyed with it for the last year and so on, with the UI, which will definitely as we all said, the UI, the UX will definitely be polished in so fast and in so little, to simply make things very much one click and we're ready, right? How much do you value the importance of actually learning all the steps that came in AI? Say with ChatGPT, you can have a result, but it works for all AIs. You can have a result whatever you type in, right? The more that you can type things more correctly, right? Prompts, you can actually be knowledgeable for your prompts and actually know how to achieve what you want in a very specific and defined way, or you can simply reach something that's around what you wanted to achieve, right? And I believe, like it was, I mean, it's for how polished it is. Google searches are still like that, right? They are so polished right now that whatever you type in, you are generally going to be very, very close to what you wanted to look for. But at the same time, if you know how to ask correctly, you are definitely going to find what you're looking for, right? And I believe that's very important with UI and UX. But UI, most importantly, being far more polished in the short future, to actually know how the AI itself works and how, and that works, and that I think battles what designers and 3D artists and creatives in general may be afraid right now, is that their knowledge of how things are achieved, of the tools that we use and we used to use to actually create, right? And the correct prompts, the correct way to achieve something, it's going to be very valuable actually in working with AI. I don't know if that's just me, that's how I view the technology. In knowing how technology works, right, you're going to be far more prepared to use it when it's far more simpler to use. But I don't know if that's just my controversial or take.
I think the most like if you're a designer, photographer, an artist, illustrator, or whatever, you'll have a huge advantage over people that doesn't have that background to produce things with AI. You have like the knowledge of terminology, you have knowledge of composition of a lot of elements like will skip you ahead and like take you to directly your result. While if you don't know, you don't have the skills that you are kind of like from learning or from workshops or whatever, you will have to do a bigger journey to get there. Like you have to learn a lot of things and everything. So I think, at least for today, like 3D designers, artists, illustrators are the people that are making the most of AI. Like that's for me, like what artists say, they, oh, I will lose my job. Like, no, people are just like other artists are using AI. People like that don't have any artistic background. And Midjourney CEO talked about this last week. I think that 80-something% of things produced with AI right now are memes or fake news. Like real content, real sellable things are almost nothing in the whole landscape. So and that kind of showcased the whole difference of like having a background, having skills to operate it, and like just trying to use it for something fun, for example.
Yeah, I can definitely confirm this on the development side too. Like it's very much like if you have a domain knowledge of development, like you're going to be able to interface with Chat GPT a lot more efficiently than if you don't have any knowledge, and then you come in and you try to create, a mobile app from scratch, right? There's just having domain knowledge, I think, as a designer or developer, any of it really, like it just gives you a head start into knowing the questions to ask the AI, right? So I think it's an assistant, it's what it is.
Yeah, and it's getting even better now. It's integrated in more and more tooling, like you said, in Spline, but also where we talked about before we went live about Framer, who's now where you can create a website within seconds. Dora AI is similar to that, but also with Photoshop integrated with Adobe Firefly, and where you have the generated fill feature, which is similar as the outpainting feature from Dolly. So as long as we all integrate these kind of features into the tooling we are already using as creatives, I think that's the best way to deal with AI. I think it's also matches with what Linus was saying about that Midjourney is connected to Discord, which is not ideal for the user. But as long as it's now integrated in tooling, I think in a few years, we don't talk about ChatGPT anymore. We don't talk about Midjourney anymore. We just talk about features in our tooling we are using, which are based on AI. So I hope that will be the way that it's really normal that just the tooling we are using every day getting smarter and smarter because of AI, and that we don't have separate AI tools needed anymore, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, I'm just going to stick in there. Like, AI will be omnipresent. Like, that's just the way it's going to be. And I think it's so funny to see, like, this year has been like the year of the rappers, everyone rapping GPT 3.5 or 4, building their own suite on top of an existing API layer. I think the real winner here is going to be whoever does it operating system first. Whatever OS comes out with like an integrated AI in the core, maybe even running like partially locally on your edge, like on your machine, basically, doing half of the computational work on your machine and offloading half of the work to the cloud, depending on how extensive your asks are. Multimodality, like I think, I'm not sure like how well aware everyone is here. Like we're currently using different kind of models to do different kind of work. So Stable Diffusion and Midjourney's like diffusion models, they can only do images, whereas like GPT-4, 3.5, they're like large language models that can only do text. We're seeing like an intersection where all this getting into like the same place. We're seeing it with Bing, basically, where you can like prompt for images and text in the same place. So I think like the omnipresent of AI will be there. So the fact that we're so early and we're like running around and knowing all these different names, and we're using Midjourney or we're using Firefly, we're using ChatGPT, all of that will, like you said, go away. I think what's interesting here is like with generalized models, we're expecting generalized output, but we are designers, and I think all of us really want specialized output. We want specialized tooling. We want to know, like, I want to use the best thing in this realm to do this. And then a general model basically does not cut it for us. I think that's where if we're back at the point where, like, how do we create tools for designers? How do we create tools for creatives? It's like trying to really understand the need, as with any product or any service that you're building, trying to very well define a problem and then try to solve that problem. I think I would love to see more of that, but with help of AI. So instead of trying to build like a general intelligence for solving any problem, to be like, hey, we have this little thing here, it's really good at doing X. You better use it. And I think what we're seeing now with fine tunes, like, for example, integrating a text interface into Spline, for example, is like a directional point. We're going to see more of that, but it's also going to be proprietary. We're not going to see someone using a large model that weighs like many gigabytes of data and many kind of parameters to do these things, where the use cases are very limited. So maybe this is a bit too technical, but like, I really think that's where we're heading. And if you're building tooling, and if you are interested in building tooling for designers, I would think that you would focus your best time and effort to go specialized. That's my opinion. Maybe if someone is against that, I would love to hear that.
No.
Just have to drop quick bye to everybody. Thanks a lot for everything. Thanks all for participating and for the questions. And thanks, Isa, for making this all possible.
Thank you, Mauricio, and feel free.
Bye-bye.
We are a little bit over time, but for anyone who can stay, we do have some comments and questions from the chat. So this might be a good time to sort of transition. So let me see. We do have a question that I believe is, well, it's quite broad, but it might do well to summarize. So from Domagoj Kraken, where do you see designers and developers in the next 5 years? Who will be more valuable in the market? Interesting that we're bringing up sort of a comparison here.
Maybe the more interesting question here is to ask, like, where won't they be? Like, I don't think we'll do a lot of monkey work. So sorry for the expression. I don't think we'll do a lot of like repetitive, boring work. Like, designers do spend a lot of time on that today. I want to be very clear. Like rotoscoping, for example. If you've ever done rotoscoping for segmenting anything out in After Effects, it's tedious, takes hell of a lot of hours, and I think that kind of thing will be completely gone. So who will be more valuable, I think, is like a very I don't think there should be a comparison between that, but both are very valuable. I think both will be more increased value. I think we'll need more designers and more developers. That's been my stance since day one. AI will not remove the need for that, for sure. We'll do different things.
Eugene, were you going to comment on that? I apologize.
No, I mean, I agree. I think, yeah, I think there's still going to be both needed. I mean, it's a very different role. I don't think AI is going to replace both of them, or replace one or another, I think developers are going to be used to solve the more technical problems, and AI is going to assist them in both of that. So I don't know if that's the best approach to necessarily, look at AI through.
I mean, it is tying into what we were discussing previously about perhaps like not necessarily viewing it as replacement, right? But looking at the ways that we will collaborate instead. I do want to bring up there seems to be a previous comment about the sort of ethical concerns that we were discussing more earlier on. But I believe this is from Drake V2. As someone in the design industry, I can't see current AI tools being used anytime soon precisely because of the legal gray area around creating work using content that nobody knows the origin of. And there are a lot of comments also sort of debating about sort of comparing AI inspiration to human inspiration. So what do you all think about that? Oh no.
Okay, test. Yeah. Zoom is ragging me hard today. No, I believe it's in the gray area, right? It's in the gray area that advancement is made, right? In the gray area, it's when actually, yes, some will burn themselves with the gray area when it won't be gray anymore. But I believe that's actually when people can create. You are seeing this in other aspects of Web3 as well, with crypto, for instance, and stuff like that, where the gray area is simply where at one point people will simply say, okay, yeah, I'm doing this and we'll see if this works out or not, right? It's not a very florid environment to actually build stuff, but it's also the environment where very dedicated people, companies, and so on will actually go and build. I truly believe, and sorry if I become a little bit anecdotal, is that it's people who actually create culture, and it's not laws that create culture, right? And what we're talking about here is culture itself. If people and the general discussion between people turns out to be, okay, yeah, these machines, these AIs are getting inspired like humans are, okay, from these artists, and they lean more towards that idea, then the law will only reflect that. It won't be the opposite, right? So yeah, I think this is a very important ethical topic to discuss, and that only the discussion with others will actually help determine.
Maybe also there's a misconception about how diffusion models or GAN networks actually work. I see a lot of people going like online being like, hey, you know, AI is just like image lookup. It's just like Google search image, and then you get a result, and it's just taking someone else's image. It's like, I wish it was that simple, man. Like then we would have had this a long time ago. And I think like the real question here is like, yes, there are like, if you look at like generations, like if you generate 100 images or 1,000 images, maybe 1%, maybe 2% of those, you'd find very similar images. And that's not because like AI is just like doing a search and finding an image that matches your search. It's due to the fact that the data set has either slightly corrupt, or you're prompting something that is exactly existing out there already, like to the word. A diffusion model actually has like something called the latent space. And maybe there are some really, you know, machine learning experts listening to this, but like the latent space is basically a black box. We know what's inside of the black box, but it's run in two directions. It's bidirectional. So during training, you take an image and you diffuse it down to black and white noise or colorful noise, it depends. But like, let's just say black and white for the compare, like easy to compare. So you take an apple, you go all the way down to the spectrum where it's just noise left. And then you reverse the process and you have like the noise, and you're asking the model, the AI model, to replicate an apple. It will try to go from the noise sample all the way to recreating the apple. So, and this is happening within the latent space of the model. So when you're like having an encoder and a decoder at the end, you're putting some text in, and the decoder will kind of look at the text and trying to find corpus inside of that noise space and mix all the noise together. And then through iteration in its own neural network, it will try to comprise an image of what you've asked for. That's why we can do weird things with AI, like impossible images. We can ask for Darth Vader made out of a kitsuguri golden material and marble. There's no images of Darth Vader in the training set with a marble headset, like with a marble material on his head. No, that's not how it works. Like the AI knows what marble is, it knows what kitsuguri is, and it knows what Darth Vader is, and then it tries to fuse all of this together. So like I think the misconception here is like the people really don't understand what AI does, and that's why I can confidently say that AI is inspired by what it looks at. It's more akin to how a human works, and that's what we've been trying to replicate with the diffusion model, and that's why it's more inspirational than just copy-paste. And I think AI is stupid today. If we look at where AI stands, like it's dumb, it's very like dull. It's like, if we look at Tetris, compare Tetris to a AAA game today, I think we're at the age of Tetris with AI, and we are going to be at the age of AAA gaming in a much shorter time period than what it took to go from Tetris 30 years ago to like AAA gaming today. Maybe that time range is going to be cut by a third, so 10 years, or it might be cut by 6, so it might 5 years. My point here is that we are debating kind of at some points the wrong things. It's not whether or not this is ethical of AI to like learn from human corpus or not. I think we should discuss that, and like you should have a way to exclude your work from training sets if you want to. But the other side of that is like the creators and the machine learning experts will just go like, hey, we're just going to work a way around to train these models with 10%, like with a tenth of the data set instead. and output will probably be as good. If we learned anything from like something that's exponential, we just know it's going to improve, and critics are going to be like probably heard, and then we're going to solve it anyway. But the problem remains. We can still just type some text and get the output out. So we missed the opportunity to talk about the real kind of impactful things early on. So I think that's where my stance on this is. And I think we should teach more about like how machine learning works and how neural networks, to like make sure we can have a debate that's on the same level, so that we're not kind of like debating orange and apples because someone thinks like an AI model is a reverse image search. So sorry for the rant, but it's like that. I think that helps a lot when trying to levelize the playing field.
Yeah, and a little addition to that, I think I totally agree, obviously, because if it was stealing stuff from other artists, I wouldn't use AI because I'm not that kind of person. But also want to highlight, of course, there are lots of artists which name is getting used in prompts. And that's a whole different area, of course. We shouldn't do that. That's becoming way harder than to create unique stuff, and then you're really using work from other people to create your own work with. And that's, of course, it's again a gray area, but it's way more tricky, and I really wouldn't do that. Of course, if you use it as inspiration or whatever, it's part of your process, I don't know, that's okay, but not as an end result. So just want to say that.
Awesome. This is kind of funny because you seem to be already answering the next question in the chat, but essentially there's a question from Irene O, who is a lead designer who is actually using AI to work on some of her own projects, which usually her juniors do. But she's asking, how can we encourage people who are afraid of AI to start believing this is a breakthrough revolution? And I mean, again, I think this is sort of touching on sort of the fear that you mentioned, or at least like that where debate might be happening in the wrong places, and also what you talked about, education. But if we'd like to address this question as well.
They just should watch this YouTube video, I think. And then we're all done. Because this is, I think this whole video is about like, yeah, being positive about AI and about the revolution of AI and how we can integrate it in our workflows, in our work. So I think that would help already. But on the other hand, as said earlier, I think when it's part of our tooling, it could help us a lot. And yeah, I always say, sometimes I compare it with the ideal intern, and not to be disrespectful to all interns, but it's the intern who's working 24/7 and always delivers. And I think that's a funny way of thinking, because it really feels like that it could save me time so I can focus on the more important stuff. And I think that goes for every kind of job. Like if I, for example, look at my girlfriend, who is a teacher, she uses AI for imagery in her presentations to the kids. So in every kind of industry, this could be helpful. And I think that's what I really like about this whole AI thing, because it's different than all the other stuff where we talked about in the past years, like metaverse. However, with the Apple launch recently, it's maybe becoming bigger again. But it's those were more trends, maybe you could call it. AI is just like a new revolution, just like we got the internet revolution, just like we got the social media revolution. It's just something new, and it will be integrated in every kind of industry slowly. And maybe we are the early adopters in the digital industry, but the more people are going to use it, the more possibilities we will see as well, I think.
There's actually a follow-up question by Irene, which is sort of related to what we were talking about earlier about how, depending on how, I guess, mature your career is, or how far along you are in your career, the way you react to basically this AI disruption can be very different, and the way you adapt will also be different. And I guess Irene is also asking, how can young designers cope when traditional design processes are disrupted? But I think it would be also interesting to expand this to like other positions as well.
Someone working in development for the past 8 years, I think the exciting, I mean, it comes down to your ability to be willing to adapt and change, right? I mean, as humans, I think we're naturally resistant to that. But I mean, for me, it's like it should be educated and taught as something exciting and something that can empower you to do things much easier, right? And make your workflow a lot simpler. So yeah, I mean, I think it's harder for someone who's really been stuck in their ways for, an industry for 10, 20 years, and something comes along and completely changes the way your whole workflow goes. I can definitely understand that. But I think just having a little bit of willingness to just see how these tools might help you, even if it may seem scary at first, I think people are going to find that it's actually going to be beneficial in the end.
Yeah, I also think that probably the longer the bigger the experience you have, so the more years, let's say, the more baggage that you built in time, okay, the more relevant that keeps you relevant, right? And the more these new competitive advantage that can simply take you off your chair, okay, it becomes scarier, right? And unfortunately, fear is not something rational, okay, but while at the same time, rationality is the only thing that can actually solve that. So I think that most people, like it is today with the internet again. I'm from Italy. We're quite late to adapt to stuff on the bigger percentage of the population, right? And so I still think that most people will simply will create the noise that Linus was speaking about earlier. Linus was speaking about, let's find a way to discuss, to have a fair field on which to discuss actual things that can impact how AI will shape out to be, rather than the noise, okay, that simply comes from ignorance, and ignorance is very human. It's something that exists. But I believe that fear of, and also as we grow older, our willingness to learn, okay, depends on from person to person, but generally our willingness to learn and experiment and jump into new stuff becomes very, very thin, right? So I simply believe that this is something that will happen over time. It's not something, some will adapt to it, some will simply not, and the world will go on as it does. I mean, I've seen that, and we've all seen that for the internet. We've all seen that for social media, like Marten was saying. We've all seen that for the Industrial Revolution 200 years ago. So I'm pretty nihilistic on this.
I think there's an interesting thing to observe here. And if we're looking at when I entered the industry, for example, and I looked at my peers and my seniors, and I saw like 10, 15 years more of experience and the way that they were working with certain tooling. And obviously, like if for me, I entered early on as a runner, and I've been working my way up in the industry. I did all the shit work in the early days. And then, my peers do it, like drawing, doing notes, and like doing art directional things. And I'm looking at now where I am in my career, and I'm looking at the people entering the industry, and I see that divide between what I know and what they know. And there's basically not that big of a difference. But for me, there was a large difference between like what I knew when I came in and what people were doing. And if we're looking at AI now, and people that are coming early, they're coming out of like, maybe university, and they're entering the workforce, and they are like adapting quickly to use AI. They are young, they're hungry, they want to do things. And then I look at the seniors, and they're kind of like, yeah, I tried this, but it didn't do the work for me, or, the output wasn't what I was expecting. And then they give up because like they try first and it doesn't work, and they give up. This is a very, very dangerous position to be in for a few reasons, because like the divide between the people that come in early and disrupt the way that we work, and the way that the seniors are working, and the way that they have been working for a long period of time, if they are not willing to adapt, and they're not willing to do these, like take these tools in, it doesn't matter if they're creatives or they're engineers, whatever they are, and the young people, the people that are hungry and they're willing to do things, they are just going to first get on par. And we're going to have people with like less experience, and that's also not good. Like we need to have a balance in the workforce. But then they're going to supersede, because they're going to like find ways to elevate themselves, and they're going to find ways to do more with less. And I I've seen this already with developers, friends that have been, being engineers for 15 years, and they're attending hackathons together with like junior developers, and they go like, holy, what's going on here? I am being outrun by someone with 2 years of coding experience that are working alongside ChatGPT, alongside Copilots, and I'm here stuck in my old ways, and I have a hard time thinking outside the box. Like I'm a lateral thinker, but I have a hard time to connect the dots here. Whereas someone that is not biased from like 15 years of experience, that are not biased from like, this is the way the industry works, they are just going to like hammer on things until they get through. Like an angry dog trying to bite you, right? They're just like, give me what I want. And the fact that AI tools are so powerful, it just puts them in a different universe compared to people that are not willing to even give it a decent try. So I think, again, that's why I'm doing what I do. That's why I'm keep pushing on a broad spectrum, on trying to get people like, get your hands on these tools, try them out, be playful. There's no right and wrong. Like, drop every fear that you have. All fear-based response to this should just go away, and then come back and have an opinion. So I think like really just want to point that out, that it's like so obvious from the sidelines of this, that to see what's going on. And we need to kind of like have more people like us in this panel. And obviously we're lacking a bunch of women here as well, but we need more people to just show what can be done and how powerful these tools are and how little it takes to actually become good at them. The barrier of entry has never been lower. You don't need fancy equipment. You need an internet connection and a browser. That's it. No expensive equipment whatsoever. Like, mind blown, basically.
Yeah, I think the analogy too is like, it's like trying to be a developer without Google, you know? It's like the same like situation. Like no one's doing, no one's doing that at the moment. There's not some guy, like not connected to the internet who knows like, all of C++ and can just like run through it like anything, So it's like any technology that comes along. We have to look at it and consider it,
Yeah, it's like, or without Stack Overflow, or without, like, imagine a developer pulling out a book from a bookcase, reading like the C++, like, oh, here it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. I mean, thank you guys. I've just been so immersed in this that I just noticed, but we are just a little bit over time. I just wanted to check in on how we're doing in terms of our availability, because we do have like a couple more questions left, but how are we feeling about sort of where we're at in terms of the conversation? Yeah, in consideration of everyone's time, thank you so much. And that might be our last question. And so I just wanted to end off with, first of all, I wanted to say thank you to all of our esteemed panelists for their invaluable insights and just the amazing thought-provoking discussions we've had today. I've seen a lot of people resonate in the chat. Thank you, Linus, for also replying in the chat and actually participating. But if any of y'all have any more questions, I do encourage, each and every one of you have great communities and are pretty active on social media. So I would say if you have any more questions, feel free to get connected on social media. And also, I wanted to just say thank you everyone for attending this Dora Expo event. And we actually hope to see you at all the other panels. We have like about 5 more events in the next few days. And we'll be talking more about AI, right? But also the implications of mixed reality, especially the new advancements of the Apple Vision Pro on web experiences, and just so many other fascinating topics that are actually quite related to what we talked about today. So don't forget that you can sign up for all these events. We'll be providing the QR code soon. But yeah, thank you so much for everyone who participated today, and really sad that Mauricio had to go early, but yeah, thank you guys so much for this amazing discussion.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Really nice.